Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard, and today I want to talk about triglycerides, cholesterol, blood sugar, weight gain. Recent studies in America, we now have 42% of Americans obese. And there's a very interesting relationship between obesity levels, blood sugar levels, triglycerides, and cholesterol levels. So if you lower your triglyceride levels, then you all of a sudden, your blood sugar goes down, your weight goes down, and your cholesterol goes down. Studies also show if you lower your blood sugar, your weight goes down, your triglycerides go down, and your blood sugar go down. So they're all sort of these biodirectional kind of factors that we can use to kind of manipulate one. You manipulate them all, or you bring one into balance and they all start to fall into balance, which is really a really cool thing and some really amazing research on two herbs or plants that I want to talk about. But before I do that, I want to talk about some other natural lifestyle ways to lower your cholesterol. And the two plants I'm talking about are bergamot, the stuff in Earl Grey tea, and Amalaki. Together, they are powerfully beneficial for the relationship between weight loss, triglycerides, cholesterol, and your blood sugar. And so much so that Western medical doctors are using these combinations of bergamot and amalaki to actually support the effectiveness of statin drugs, which are only like 50 to 60% effective, and 20% of the population don't get any benefit from them at all. So they need alternative options, and they're looking, doctors are looking to this combination as the alternative, which is pretty cool. But before we dive into some more of that research on bergamot and amalaki, let me tell you some really cool things. Well, I did a really interesting podcast with a woman named Mary Flynn. She's a PhD researcher from Brown University in Rhode Island. And she did a lot of research on olive oil, right? And found that when you take 2 tablespoons of olive oil per day, she actually likes to have you take 3. And that means on your salad, you can cook with it. Just make sure you get 2 to 3 tablespoons per day. Her research shows that the LDL levels go up, the HDL levels go up rather, the LDL levels go down, the cholesterol levels go down, triglycerides go down, and of course you lose weight, which is really, really cool. It was a mono unsaturated fat, which means it only has one double bond, which means it's pretty stable, so it doesn't break up like the polyunsaturated that are in your vegetable oils, which are really bad, right? And to make sure you get the right kind of olive oil. So go to my article. It's called How Do You Know You're Getting the Best Olive Oil, or Real Olive Oil, because 82% of the olive oil has been shown to be adulterated. So you got to make sure you're getting the good stuff. That's really important as well. But it's an interesting point about cholesterol levels and triglyceride levels. And people ask the question, is ghee good for you? And is coconut oil good for you? It's a saturated fat, and they raise cholesterol levels, which they will. Studies show when people do panchakarma or our Colorado cleanses, you're going to see a little bit of a boost of cholesterol levels go up. But the study shows 6 weeks later, they go down further than they were before, which is fine. But if you have high cholesterol and high triglycerides and you have cardiovascular risk, you don't even want to necessarily go down that road. And the reason is it's the perfect storm effect. If you take a saturated fat like ghee and butter in combination with bad oils, the highly processed cooked vegetable oils that are high in omega-6 fatty acids. Years ago, the omega-3 fatty acids we get from fish oils and some seeds were like 20 to 1 omega-3 to omega-6, which are seed oils, omega-6, fish oils, omega-3. Today, it's 20 to 1 omega-6 to omega-3, which is a bad combination. And so we had this shift that's taken place over the years that have made us really vulnerable. And the omega-6s we take are the canola oil, vegetable oil, sunflower oils, cooked vegetable oils that are bleached, boiled, and deodorized, that are so processed. They have to basically deodorize them because they smell so bad. And they put them in your brownies and your cookies and your crackers, and then the stuff stays soft and bread stays soft on the shelf forever, right? This is a bad problem. And so it's that oil in combination with saturated fats, in combination with other processed foods and a high carbohydrate diet is the perfect storm for cardiovascular disease or high triglyceride levels or sugar on top of that. Because you can't be taking in all this fuel, right? Fats are fuel, carbs are fuel, sugar is fuel. And if you take in all this fuel in excess, you're going to have a problem. And if it's processed, all the stuff that's processed that no bug will eat, like your bugs, your gut bugs, they eat oil. That's what they eat. And they eat really good olive oil and seed oils from almonds and the natural occurring oils, but not the highly processed stuff that's in the clear plastic bottles in the 24/7 bright light grocery stores that would make any oil go rancid in a second if it was actually a real oil, right? But it's not. So the stuff just sits there on the shelf. You put it in your brownies, and it won't be digested when you put it in your bread. The bugs won't eat it on the counter anymore because they don't want to eat that oil because it's processed. They don't recognize it. You put it inside of you, you won't digest it. Your bugs won't eat it, and it all goes to your liver and congest your liver. So then when you combine saturated fats like ghee with the bad vegetable oils, which unfortunately when you go to a restaurant, you don't know what kind of oil you're getting, and they usually use the cheapest stuff they can get. Even the good restaurants do. On top of the sugar, on top of the high carbohydrate diets, you have lots of carbs, lots of fats, bad fats, good fats. It's the perfect storm. And that all goes to your liver, and it congests your liver. You have these problems: weight gain, high cholesterol, high blood sugar, and high triglycerides. All of that happens. So that's why when you say, is ghee good? Yeah, ghee is fantastic with the right diet, right? With the right diet in combination. But in combination, it's bad. So olive oil, interestingly, seems to transcend all those rules. It's just good for you. It's good for you if you have heart disease. It's good for you if you don't have heart disease. So, and even it can make a bad diet better. So in that regard, I'm a fan, right? So that's really important. The other thing that we always think about is intermittent fasting. And that means, having more time between the meals, which is a really good idea. And Ayurveda 101 is like breakfast, have a good enough breakfast, right? To get you to lunch, then a good enough lunch to get you to supper, and supper good enough to get you to breakfast the next morning and sleep through the night. Simple, right? And then as you get better at burning fat, as opposed to eating meal, snack, meal, snack, meal, snack, meal, snack, which means you're burning the meal and the snack and the meal and the snack and the meal and the snack, which means you don't burn your fat, which is your stores to make energy last for a long period of time. You're not doing that, right? You're burning meal, snack, meal, snack, meal, snack. So to get your body to make that energy last, you got to give it a reason. If I have a good breakfast and nothing till lunch, I'm going to burn my fat in between. From lunch to supper, I'm going to burn my fat in between. And from supper to breakfast, I'm going to burn my fat, break the fast, really. But the Ayurvedic approach to making it even better would be to take supper, make it smaller, make it earlier. I wrote a whole ebook on this based on a research project we did when my second book, The 3-Season Diet, came out. And it's called the Weight Balancing ebook. It's free and all the research is there, and it's a guide that tells you how to lose weight naturally. But we get rid of supper. And most people who intermittent fast, they get rid of breakfast because it's super easy to just have a cup of coffee, which people say you can fast on a cup of coffee. And then have breakfast and supper and still be with your family. Except for that breaks the circadian rules. We have clocks in our body that turn on and turn off, and the clocks that turn on digestion are in the morning at lunch, and they're off at night for breakfast or for dinner, right? So that's a problem. So even though it will work you lose some weight, but the long run, you want to be thinking of making supper the smaller meal as opposed to the bigger meal, which of course they still do in Europe, right? You go to Europe or France or someplace like that, in the rural towns and in Austria, Switzerland, places like that. The shops and restaurants close in the middle of the day for lunch, right? So they're still doing it, and it's paid dividends for them. They call it what do they call it? The French effect or something, I forget. But it's all about why they have all this fatty food and they have heart disease compared to us, right? The only risk factor for heart disease is being an American, right? And because all these other people have a high fat diet and break all these rules, but their fats are real, they're not processed, they're cooked fresh. We're not doing this whole process perfect storm combo I talked about, right? So those are the three things: breakfast, lunch, make supper smaller, lighter, and eventually even try to skip it a couple of nights a week to give you that Ayurvedic intermittent fasting, which links you up with, of course, your circadian clock, which is like Nobel Prize winning science and a really good idea to make sure you follow those rules. Okay, so those are some basic things to do for your triglycerides, blood sugar, weight gain, which is like 42% of the population obese, right? And your cholesterol levels, to bring those back into balance. And then there's the bergamot and the amala. We just launched a product called Bergamot Amala Plus, which is this formula of this combination. And studies show that they did a meta-analysis with over 20 different studies, and they found that bergamot was significantly effective in reducing weight, triglycerides, blood sugar. Other studies show that it actually supports healthy hair. I'm working on that. Bones, collagen for your skin and other skin issues, and inflammation. So it's been used for centuries. Bergamot actually comes from Asia, and now it's mostly grown in Italy, but it was used historically for weight and heart health issues and blood sugar issues and things like that. In another study, a meta-analysis study with over 442 different studies, they found that bergamot was effective in 75% of the cases to lower triglycerides, cholesterol, you lower your HDL levels, your LDL levels, as well as your blood sugar. And amla in Ayurvedic medicine is a rasayana, right? It means it's a longevity herb, and it's been used for thousands of years as one of the major rasayanas to help boost longevity. It's harvested in the winter, which means because it has a lot of vitamin C, like other citrus fruits do. And the citrus part of the vitamin C, citric acid part of the amala berry, actually has been shown to protect your fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, E, and K, which are so important in the winter, which we call in Ayurveda vata season, which is air, drying, cold, and the oils are insulating for that cold, dry air. So the vitamin C actually protects those vitamins. In fact, studies show that the vitamin C will actually, if some of the fats became rancid, they would be reconstituted by the citric acid. And back in the old days, they would make oils the old-fashioned way. They would press it with, by hand with these cranks, cold press in dark rooms, put it in dark brown bottles, and deliver it in the wee hours of the morning in the dark in little milk boxes for the seed oils, the vegetable oils, to go to people so they can use them in their cuisine diet, cuisine cooking, things like that, right? Because they were stable. They were unstable, so they had to protect them. And now we have these oils that are just like, so highly processed that they can stay in bright lights and clear plastic bottles. No oil ever did that before until these guys. So we have to avoid them. And what happens is those oils, as you can see, are very easily become rancid, and then they're denatured. But the citric acid, the vitamin C in the winter, which is good for your immune system as well, it reconstitutes those rancid fats, so you keep your vitamin D, which is really important because a study just came out this week that showed that 80% of the people with COVID have a vitamin D deficiency. 80% of the people with COVID have a vitamin D deficiency. So make sure, please, that you have a vitamin D levels up between 50 to 80 nanograms per milliliter. It's usually about 4,000 or 5,000 IUs per day. And that's the reason, in study after study, while black and brown people are more vulnerable to this viral pandemic, so critically important. I don't understand why this is not being given away to everybody, particularly black and brown communities, for free by our government. This is because it's just, every week a new study comes out about the vitamin D levels with black and brown folks. And I wrote about that back in 2013 when H1N1 came out. And there was studies about vitamin D back then. So come on, guys, vitamin D is our viral protector. You got to make sure that's up and how important that is. So studies have shown that amla, not in addition to your protecting your fats, in a randomized double-blind study with 98 volunteers, showed that amla alone decreased your triglycerides, your cholesterol, increased your HDL, decreased your ApoB, which is the apolipoprotein B, which is a risk factor for these heart-related issues, blood sugar, and most importantly, it supports arterial function and arterial health. And that's sort of the classic use for amla, is it keeps that endothelial lining of your arteries really, really happy and really, really clean. Anyway, there you have it. Lots of information on triglycerides, cholesterol, blood sugar, and weight gain. They all tie together with some of these lifestyle tips I gave you, and think about Bergamot and Amla. Check out our website. We have an article on all this science. It's on Bergamot Amla Plus, our brand new product. Really cool, but also lifestyle stuff, man. Don't forget about that. Don't eat the perfect storm foods to screw up your heart health and your arterial health. So important as you get a little bit older. All right, guys, thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next week.